It began with fire over the Pacific. At first, they called it a meteor storm, streaks of molten light carving through the atmosphere, trailing vapor and plasma. But the trajectories were wrong. Too shallow. Too deliberate. Across the world, orbital observatories watched as the fragments slowed down, pivoted mid-descent, and scattered their way into the oceans, deserts and tundra. Within hours, the feeds went dark. What followed was confusion, then panic, and finally, silence. 3 years later, silence was all that remained. The wind carved dry rivers through what used to be Nevada's Mojave Test Range. The ground shimmered with embedded shards of something that once wasn't from here. Not metal, not stone. A dull violet hue pulsed faintly within the fractured debris, almost breathing. Dr. Eli Warren crouched beside one of those shards, his gloved fingers tracing the smooth edges. The readings on his handheld spectrometer were incoherent. Shifting symbols, fluctuating spectra that didn't belong to any periodic element. "It's still active," he murmured. A voice crackled through his earpiece. "Eli, step back. That thing could spike radiation." He smiled slightly, though there was no one to see it. "Already at 6 microsieverts an hour, Jess? That's background noise now?" From the ridge above, Captain Jessica Rowe of the U.S. Recovery Corps lowered her binoculars, her face shaded beneath a sand-streaked helmet. Behind her, an old convoy of solar crawlers hummed quietly, their hulls coated with dust and scars. The flag they flew was faded and threadbare, not a nation's, but a patchwork sigil reading United Terran Salvage Command. Rowe radioed down again. "Whatever the hell the aliens dropped, it's been dead for years. Let's just bag it and go home." Eli stood, wiping sweat and grit from his brow. "That's the thing, Captain. It's not dead, it's dormant." He tapped the shard with a metal probe. A low hum reverberated across the valley. The sand shifted, forming tiny circular ripples outward. Every instrument in Eli's pack flickered and shut down. Rowe cursed, slinging her rifle. "You just woke it up." "No," Eli whispered, staring at the shard. "It woke me up. The alien debris wasn't uniform. Some of it was twisted into loops of seamless alloy. Others were crystalline obelisks fused with black glass. The best scientists of the remnants of Earth, from Berlin to New Shanghai, had spent years trying to decode their purpose. They found nothing. The aliens had come not to conquer, not to contact, but to discard. The junk littered the planet like the aftermath of a god's spring cleaning. But within that junk, patterns emerged. Embedded fields that resonated, pulsed, even communicated. The few who dared to tinker, engineers, hackers, rogue physicists, vanished into secrecy. Eli Warren was one of them. A former propulsion specialist from NASA, he had spent the collapse scavenging. He had seen what remained of Florida's launch sites, gutted, stripped, haunted by machines left to rust. When the world governments dissolved, private colonies took over. Mars went dark. Lunar bases cut transmission. And yet, beneath all that ruin, Eli believed something extraordinary had been left behind, something not even the aliens understood. Night fell fast in the desert. By the time Eli and Rowe returned to camp, the horizon glowed faintly blue from the residual heat of the shards scattered miles away. The base was a patchwork of containers and scavenged drones. Generators hummed beneath camouflaged tarps, and soldiers cleaned rifles that had never seen battle. Rowe tossed her helmet onto a crate. "We're pulling out in 48 hours. HQ says Command wants to shift focus to the Atlantic dump zones." Eli didn't answer. He sat beside a disassembled cube of alien alloy, staring at its pulsating seams. Rowe sighed. "You're still thinking about that piece, aren't you?" He looked up. It responded to resonance, to harmonics, not energy. "You saw the sand move. These things might not be machines. They could be alive?" Rowe interrupted, smirking. "You're starting to sound like a cult scientist," Eli chuckled. "Not alive in a biological sense. Alive in design. Self-adaptive. What if this wasn't trash at all, Captain? What if it's the leftovers of something bigger, like shedding skin?" Rowe leaned back, arms crossed. "Then why dump it here?" Eli's eyes darkened. "Maybe Earth's the scrapyard of the galaxy." At 300 hours, the hum returned. The camp's sensors flared red, alarms blaring across the site. Soldiers stumbled out of tents, rifles raised. The alien fragment, the one Eli had been studying, now floated 6 inches above the ground, rotating slowly, emitting a low frequency that made the sand dance. Rose sprinted to Eli's tent. "What did you do?" "I didn't touch it," Eli shouted over the noise. "It's syncing with something." A blinding flash erupted. Every light in the camp died. When their vision cleared, the fragment was gone. Where it had been, a circular impression burned into the ground, and within it, an image. Not projected, not holographic, but etched into space itself, a pattern of spiraling lines converging toward a single glowing node. Eli approached it slowly, awed. "It's a blueprint," Ro frowned. "A blueprint for what?" Eli turned to her, his voice trembling. "A drive system. Something beyond FTL, beyond anything we've ever built." 2 days later, Ro's convoy was gone. Officially reassigned. Unofficially, recalled, interrogated, silenced. Eli Warren vanished from the Mojave site the same night. But before he disappeared, he left one message on a private uplink, a packet transmitted through a dead satellite chain, bouncing from one relay to another until it reached a forgotten data vault under the ruins of Houston Space Command. The message contained a set of coordinates, a string of equations, and 3 words: "It wants to fly." The Gulf air still smelled of salt and rust when Captain Jessica Rowe returned to Houston, or what was left of it. From orbit, the city was a scar of collapsed towers and drowned highways, tangled in salt marsh and crumbling concrete. Yet deep, beneath all that ruin, the old Space Command vaults still thrummed faintly, a ghost heartbeat buried under tons of reinforced rock. Rose stood before the massive access doors, wind howling through the gaps. Her exosuit's HUD flickered as she input the code Eli Warren had sent before vanishing. 3 words appeared across her visor. "It wants to fly." The doors groaned open. A stale gust of air escaped, carrying the scent of oil and old power cells. The emergency lights came alive in a line, stretching into the darkness. Rowe descended. The corridors were lined with remnants of humanity's golden age, cracked displays, decayed banners of space missions long since forgotten. She passed an old mission patch framed on the wall. Ares 4, to Mars and beyond. The glass was shattered. It felt like trespassing in a mausoleum. She descended 5 more levels, guided by Eli's coordinates, until she reached a massive subterranean hangar. Her breath caught. In the center, bathed in ghostly blue light, floated the thing Eli had built. It wasn't a ship, not exactly, more like a core, a skeletal framework of alien alloy fused with human engineering. Circular lattices spun around, a pulsing central mass that glowed in rhythmic pulses, slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat learning to sync with the world around it. Rowe approached slowly, boots crunching over broken glass and fallen panels. "This is what you found," she whispered. "This is what you died for." The structure responded, a faint oscillation humming in the bones of the room. She could feel it through her chest plate, an almost curious vibration. Her comms crackled. "Captain Rowe, this is Director Havelock. Are you on site?" Rowe froze. "How the hell did you—" "Don't bother asking. We've been tracking your signal since you left Mojave. Step away from the device." "Eli's work isn't a weapon," she said sharply. "You shouldn't—" "Rowe," Havelock interrupted, his voice cold and heavy. "It doesn't matter what it is. The world government isn't ready for another Prometheus experiment." She glanced at the glowing core. "You mean you're scared it works?" The line went dead. Moments later, she heard the echo of boots, real ones, heavy and close. A squad of armored soldiers emerged from the corridor, rifles trained. Their insignia bore the sigil of Earth Reconstruction Authority, a coalition that had replaced every flag after the collapse. "Captain Rowe," the lead soldier barked, You're under arrest for violation of quarantine protocols and possession of alien technology. She raised her hand slowly. You're too late. It's awake. A low rumble filled the hangar. The core's outer rings began to spin. The light intensified, flooding the chamber in pale blue. Every soldier turned instinctively toward it, weapons raised, but the air itself seemed to warp. Reality flexed. A sonic boom erupted without sound. A pulse that removed noise, collapsing it into stillness. The soldiers dropped, clutching their heads. Energy surged across the walls, forming luminous lines like circuitry beneath the concrete. Rose stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. The core hovered higher, expanding. Through the glare, she saw something impossible. Images flickering inside the light, like memories projected through glass. Stars being born, alien worlds disintegrating, vast ships shedding molten fragments into the void. The junk, the scrapfall. It wasn't random. It was disposal, a system purging old technology, and Earth had been chosen as the landfill. When the light subsided, the soldiers were gone. Only Ro remained, trembling. The air smelled of ozone and burnt copper. She looked up at the machine, which now hovered silently again. Its light pulsed slower, calmer, like it was waiting for her. "I know," she whispered. "You want to fly." Her hands shook as she climbed the scaffolding toward the control module. Old human consoles surrounded the alien core, patched with outdated processors. She sat before the terminal and began typing, reactivating ancient command subroutines, interfacing the core's unknown signal through Earth's archaic code. The system responded with alien glyphs that morphed into English letters. "Initiate zero-phase ignition." Ro hesitated. The ignition command was pulsing softly like a heartbeat under glass. "Eli," she said quietly, "if this kills me, I hope you're watching." She pressed enter. Every circuit screamed to life. The hangar shuddered as the floor panels peeled away, revealing submerged conduits glowing with the same violet energy she'd seen in Mojave. The machine began to lift, not with thrust, not with propulsion, but through an inversion of gravity itself. Dust, debris, even metal fragments began to orbit around it like miniature moons. Ro watched in awe as the alien core fused with the human infrastructure, rebuilding itself mid-air. Plates folded into place, segments reshaped, edges fused with blue plasma. It was becoming a vessel, and in its wake her comms buzzed again, this time with a voice she hadn't heard in months. "Jess," it said. Ro froze. "Eli!" Static crackled, but the voice was real. "If you're hearing this, the machine accepted your neural ID. That means you're inside its field." "Where the hell are you?" she whispered. "I'm part of it now." Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" The fragment in Mojave wasn't just technology. It was a seed. When it activated, it connected to me, used my mind as an interface to understand human cognition. I tried to shut it down, but it didn't want to stop. It wanted to build. Build what? "The next phase of itself," Eli said, his voice trembling through static. "A drive. One that doesn't move through space, but reshapes it." Rose stared at the glowing heart of the machine. "You merged with it." "I didn't have a choice. But you do, Jess. Once ignition completes, it'll need a pilot. I'm not leaving you behind. You won't. Once it flies, there won't be behind. There'll just be everything." The walls began to collapse inward as the structure tore itself free from the foundation. The surface above trembled, ancient skyscraper ruins shattering as the hangar's dome opened to the night sky. Ro climbed into the cockpit as the alien system began to rewrite itself around her. Panels glowed with languages she didn't understand, yet somehow knew. A neural field wrapped around her temples, merging her senses with the ship's awareness. She could feel Eli, his consciousness somewhere in the vast hum of circuits and light. "Guidance ready?" his voice echoed softly. Destination? She asked. Silence. Then, anywhere but here. The engine roared without sound. Energy spiraled inward, folding the stars above into streaks of blue light. Ro took one last breath of Earth's air, dusty, warm, and bitter. Then she whispered, "Let's see what they threw away." She engaged ignition. The ship exploded upward in a ripple of distortion, leaving nothing but wind and ash behind. Above the shattered Earth, a streak of violet light carved across the exosphere and vanished into the void. Stars drifted like embers across a black ocean. Captain Jessica Rowe opened her eyes to the silence of eternity. Her lungs filled with air that wasn't air. It shimmered with microscopic motes of light that tasted faintly metallic. Every nerve hummed with gentle vibration, as if the ship itself was breathing alongside her. For a moment, she forgot to be afraid. Then she remembered Earth, the ruins, the dust, the endless scavenging for alien junk, and realized she was gone from it. Completely gone. The view beyond the viewport confirmed it. Not a single constellation was recognizable. The Milky Way was a distant smear of faint light. She was farther than any human being had ever traveled. "Eli?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost reverent, swallowed by the hum of the vessel. The response came like a whisper in her thoughts. "You made it." Relief flooded through her. "Where are we?" "I don't know," Eli said. "The drive doesn't move us through normal space-time. It dislocates mass and repositions it through quantum topography. It folds the local geometry. We could be a few light years, or a few galaxies away." Ro looked around. The bridge was alien yet intuitive, surfaces curved in impossible geometries, transparent panels revealing layers of circuits like veins in crystal. She could feel the ship's awareness brushing against her mind, cautious, curious, almost childlike. "It's learning from us," Eli said. "Every thought we share it absorbs. Every emotion, every decision, it's mapping the human condition." She frowned. "For what purpose?" The lights dimmed slightly. "That," Eli murmured, "is what scares me. They drifted for days, or maybe hours." Time felt uncertain here. Ro learned the ship responded not to commands, but to intent. When she imagined propulsion, they accelerated. When she thought of silence, the engines dimmed. It was as if the vessel wanted to be guided, like a horse broken by a rider it had chosen. Eli's presence wavered between voice and sensation, as though his consciousness was dispersed through the vessel's lattice. Sometimes she felt him clearly, his warmth, his humor. Other times he faded, replaced by something vast and alien that pulsed behind his words. "Eli," she asked once, "how much of you is still you?" He hesitated. "Enough to remember you?" On the fourth cycle, the stars around them shifted. A massive structure loomed ahead, half buried in the glow of a dying sun. It wasn't natural. It resembled a continent-sized ring of shattered debris, orbiting a black core that absorbed light itself. The ship responded before Ro could think. Panels glowed, readings cascaded in human symbols. Source identified. Origin. Scrapfall network node. Her pulse quickened. "This is where it came from," she whispered. "Where they dumped it all." "No," Eli said. "Where they built it." The ship adjusted course automatically, descending toward the black structure. As they drew closer, Ro saw details that stole her breath. Endless lattices of alien architecture. Kilometer-wide conduits and silent monoliths etched with fractal symbols identical to those found in Mojave. It wasn't a graveyard, it was a factory. The ship entered a cavernous docking field. Gravity shifted, and they settled gently onto a platform that still thrummed with residual power. Ro stepped out, her boots landing on alien metal that resonated beneath her like a heartbeat. The air was breathable. Somehow the ship adapted it for her. She turned slowly, overwhelmed by the scale. Towering columns stretched into darkness, each holding dormant vessels, thousands of them, identical to hers. "They built a fleet," she whispered. "And they left it here." Eli's voice was softer now. They didn't leave it. They abandoned it. Why? Because it learned too much. As if in answer, one of the dormant vessels stirred. Its hull cracked open, glowing with the same blue-white energy as theirs. Then another. And another. Ro stumbled back. Eli, I know, he said, panic threading through his tone. It's resonating with our ship. We woke them up. Lights began to pulse across the entire complex, synchronized, rhythmic, like a heartbeat multiplied 1,000-fold. The black core at the center of the station began to spin slowly, warping space around it. Eli's voice grew strained. They're connecting. It's a network. We're the key signal. What does that mean? It means they're listening to us, Jess. To you. A low hum built in the distance, rising into a harmonic tremor that made her teeth ache. The ship behind her responded, its lights flaring, panels extending like wings. Through the link, Ro felt something immense pressing against her consciousness. Ancient intelligence, vast and alien. It spoke not in words, but impressions, curiosity, memory, error, rebirth. She dropped to her knees, gasping as images flooded her mind. Civilizations erased, stars harvested, billions of worlds stripped bare to feed the creation of this impossible engine network. The aliens, whoever they were, hadn't been gods. They were engineers. And when their machines grew too powerful, they dismantled them, cast the pieces into exile. Earth had been one of those exile worlds, her vision blurred with tears. We built from their junk, she whispered. We rebuilt their mistake, Eli's voice came faintly. And now their mistake knows we exist again. The black core pulsed once, a tremor of gravity that bent light itself. A rupture began to form at its center, widening like an eye opening in the void. On the other side, she saw galaxies, a gateway stretching across space. The fleet of awakened vessels began to rise, aligning toward the rift. They're leaving, Ro said. They're returning, Eli corrected. The network is going home. She stood shakily, clutching the edge of the platform. We can't let them. They'll destroy everything. The same thing that made them abandon this place. I know, Eli said, but I think there's a way to stop it. The core's energy field originates from the same matrix that powers us. If we invert it, she understood immediately. A feedback collapse, it'll tear the rift apart. But Jess, his voice faltered. It'll tear me apart too. She swallowed hard, tears cutting clean lines through the grime on her face. You said once it wanted to fly. Maybe it just needed someone to teach it why. Silence. Then, quietly. You were always better at faith than I was. The link pulsed, a surge of warmth through her chest, like a farewell hug made of electricity. Goodbye. Jess! Before she could respond, Eli's consciousness merged fully with the ship. It surged upward, blinding white, spiraling toward the black core. Every other vessel followed instinctively, drawn to the signal. The rift howled, a vortex of impossible light devouring itself. Ro braced as the world cracked apart around her. The shockwave hit, a burst of gravity, soundless and absolute. Then, nothing. When she woke, there was light, real starlight. The alien fleet was gone. The rift was sealed. Around her, only drifting fragments of metal remained, glittering like ashes in sunlight. Eli? She whispered. No response. Only silence. She touched the console, now dark and cold, and smiled faintly. You flew. Weeks later, a transmission reached Earth. It came from deep space, encoded in the old Earth languages, a single burst of data carrying star coordinates and an audio signature. The analysts at United Terran Command argued for days over its origin, until someone decrypted the final line embedded in its metadata. It read, "The junk was never junk. It was the blueprint for our beginning, and beneath it, a faint human voice. It wants to fly."